The Daniel initiatives. We are continuing this morning. We have two guest speakers this morning. One who is here that you may or may not know, and then we have our very own Beth Colombo, who's going to be delivering the word. It's going to be good. But this morning, we've had some really cool guests who have come and who have shared. And it's been amazing. Josh Jackson from Rod's House and Verlyn Best. And last week, our friend Derek Nordberg from Cowiche Creek Brewing. And all of that to say, we have another incredible guest this morning named Ester Huey. And she's going to come and share in just a moment. And I can't wait for you to hear from her. Ester is an amazing woman. I first encountered her through Safe Yakima. And when I was putting together the Daniel initiatives, she was someone whose face just flashed right in front of me. And I thought, I think this would be an amazing opportunity for you to hear from her and hear her passion for Yakima and why she does what she does and how she's made an influence and how she continues to be an influence and to help others be an influence in our city. I could say so many things, but I think I want to be very clear on this morning because there's a lot of really good things that you should hear. I have a short little bio that I want to share with you, and then I'm going to ask Ester to come. Ester Huey retired after 25 years as the executive director of the Southeast Yakima Community Center. In that time, she led the center from near closure to highly visible and a successful service agency serving babies to senior citizens. She combined the services of the Yakima County Substance Abuse Coalition and led that agency from its small fledgling start to a countywide substance and youth violence prevention program that was recognized and replicated throughout the state as a model program that produced documentable results. She started the first national night out program in Yakima County and has watched it grow into the large annual celebration that draws people together to just say no to crime and drugs. She was a well-known coalition builder and believed strongly that collaboration was always the best way to provide a strong continuum of services, including foster care services. Prior to her work at the center, Ester was employed with Yakima OIC for 10 years, and during that time worked closely with Henry Beauchamp to build and expand OIC into the largest OIC in the United States. Before her foray into the world of social services, she enjoyed a private sector business career as vice president and manager of training, staff development, and employee relations for Washington Mutual Savings Bank. Ester's special passion is youth. In her work life as well as her private life, she has devoted many hours to assisting children in realizing their fullest potential and success in life. Without any compensation, she has raised 24 children, including 3 birth children, and has enjoyed much personal satisfaction in providing them a warm, encouraging, and caring home. Her contributions are great. Her personal motto is taken directly from the Bible: to whom much is given, much is required. Would you please stand and welcome, in only a dad's house way, Ms. Ester Huey, everybody. Thank you so much.
Good morning, and thank you for inviting me. I really don't think you need to hear anyone after that praise and worship session. The lady who sang, I was reminded of the Bible when it was said of Queen Esther, she was sent for such a time as this. Thank you. I really appreciated that. I could feel the spirit in the church this morning. I could feel that people believed what they were hearing. And I always feel like then the people who are saying what they're saying are a vessel of God. And they were sent to give us those messages. And as I could see you all receive the message this morning, I just felt like, do I want to even try to follow this? But I can tell you God is good. He has been good in my life. I've had some peaks, but I've had some valleys. And it was only my faith in God that led me to be standing here today. Because there were times when I could just crumble. Personally, as a female, as a woman, as an African American, as a child growing up in the segregated South. I'm old enough that I remember a lot of history. And history has been important in my life. My wish, my fervent wish, and my absolute passion for work in Yakima is to level the playing field so that everyone can have a good quality of life and enjoy themselves, but never forget that God is always there. There is a song that says, "We fall down, but we stand up." I felt that this morning in this church. And I really, really, really appreciate you inviting me here to just be with you. We have a lot of needs in Yakima. The greatest need is that we could live in unity. Because without living in unity, we will not accomplish what we want to accomplish. The Lord tells us that a house divided will not stand. Yakima is divided, and we can see the results of that division every day. Our crime is rampant. I've been so heartbroken seeing the recent homicides that we've had where 15, 14-year-olds shooting people, getting killed. That breaks my heart. There is no reason for that if we can stand together and have one agenda, and that is that all people have value, and all lives have value, and all people have to believe in that value and have to support that value in whatever way they can. I'm 82 years old. I was 82 in February. I keep thinking my work is done, but you know, God calls us to do a special thing. And we have to recognize that call. Some of us don't hear the call. Some of us don't recognize it when it comes. Those 24 children that I raised, I had no intention of taking children into my home. But one day, a child came to me and said, "I need you." And that was God. That wasn't me, because I was enjoying life. And so we have to honor that call when God calls us. And one of the calls that I have, and one of the passions that I have, is Yakima. I believe if a community has been good to me, then I'm required to be good to that community. God gave me some gifts. What happens to me if I don't use that gift? I'll suffer. I won't find that joy that you were talking about this morning. And so we have to listen. We have to listen in every way to what's said, what's not said, to what's put in our path, what's not put on our path. And in our path now is an urgency, I feel, to bring this community together, to help reduce some of those negatives that are out there in the community. And I want you to know I've worked for 35 years to try to help reduce it. Sometimes it goes down, but now we see it coming back up. And we must each work together. And we must respect each other and be civil to each other. I've watched the city council that ought to be our example, and I see that lack of civility, which gets in the way of accomplishing our goals. We must do what God told us to do. We must love our neighbor as we love ourselves. And we must learn to talk to each other with respect and to believe that every person has value. I think when we get to that one place, that every person has value in Yakima, we will see the changes that we want to see in Yakima. But we have to believe it. We have to see it in our minds. We have to have that vision. When I wake up every morning, it's not that day that I'm working with. It's what I see. And I work toward what I see. And what did he say? Without a vision, we will perish. And we see that every day. If you know the Bible, then you know what's going on out there. We're not living that message that God gave us. We're not living the reason that God hung on that cross, that he gave his life, that we might have joy and happiness in our lives. And when we get back to those things, we've gotten away from a lot of things that I was taught when I was a child. And sometimes my grandchildren tell me, "Grandma, I'm tired of hearing it." But they need to hear it. Whether they get tired or not, They're tired of hearing it, but I want you to know they respect me enough to listen. And then I see the signs afterwards. And they know that when they're down, when they hit one of those valleys, they can come to me. Because I have told them that all they need to do is believe and to have faith. God doesn't come when we want him to come. But I believe he's coming to Yakima. I believe he's on his way. I see the signs that he's on his way. I watch everything that goes on in Yakima. Mike can tell you that. And I believe in crossing all boundaries. I am definitely an African American. I honor my heritage. I honor my community. I love my people. But I can't just love my people. If I just serve my people, then there's a whole lot of people out there that are not going to be served. God called me to serve. He didn't say just serve your relatives, serve your friends, serve your African American people. He said serve. He put no qualifiers on it. He said serve. And he said love one another. If I only serve that small segment, I'm not doing what God told me to do. And I try very hard to do what God told me to do. I want to see my mother. I want to see my people again. And if I don't serve well, I'm not going to see them. And I live for that day. I want you to know that I am a good churchgoer, but this church service this morning has moved me more than my own church has moved me in years. I see so much of God in you this morning. I see so, God said, come as you are. And you came as you are. And I felt bad when I couldn't stand with you, but God has kind of told me I'm old now. And that sometimes I need to sit down. So thank you for honoring that. I had open heart surgery in June. I had 5 bypasses. I had a vascular replacement. I remember going up into the hospital saying, I think I'm having a heart attack, and bells started ringing and people started running. And I was in the car when I had the heart attack. I was able to drive to Memorial Hospital. And all the way to Memorial, I just kept saying, breathe on me, Lord, breathe on me. Be with me, Jesus. I told the person at the counter I thought I was having a heart attack. That was at Memorial Hospital. I woke up at Astria Hospital after having surgery. And the only thing I remember from the time I walked into Memorial to the time I woke up after surgery at Astria was a doctor sitting down with me asking me if my business was in order. Now, they must have said a whole lot of other things to me, but I remember them saying, is your business in order? We don't have time to contact your family. We need to get you right into surgery. Do you understand what we're saying? He said, you have a 50-50 chance. I said, I understand. And he said, does the hospital have your last wishes? Have you done? I said, yes, I have. And that's all I remember. He said, are you ready? You understand? We're going to go in. You have a 50-50 chance. And he said, are you ready? And I said, oh, yes, I'm ready. I was saying to God, I'm ready. Whatever God puts in my path, I'm ready because I believe that he's there with me. And they told me that when I woke up from surgery, I was talking about God. So I know God is a good God. I know that he can work miracles. And I pray for him to work a miracle in Yakima. And I think if all of Yakima could have seen you this morning, could have seen the joy in this church, could have seen the expressions on people's faces, could have seen the belief that you were a testimony to, your church would be full next Sunday. It really would. And I didn't know that your pastor had so many talents. I know he can cook. I know he can cook. I didn't know he could sing. I didn't know he could play the instrument. God has given him these marvelous talents. How can you not follow him when you see what God has manifested in his life? He can sing, he can play the guitar, he can raise the spirit of the church, he can cook. Those are gifts. Those are gifts that God has given him to conduct his ministry. Because with all of those gifts, where cannot he go? You see, God puts you in a place, he calls you to do something, and then he gives you the gifts that you need. When I stand up before city council complaining, I have every faith that I'm sending a message that has been sent to me. Whether they hear it or not, I've done my work. And that's the important thing. Whether they hear you or not, we've done our work. Whether we say that, whether we make an enemy when God tells us to say something, that's insignificant to me because I've done what God required me to do. And so sometimes I've made some enemies. Sometimes I've made some people angry. Just recently, I didn't like the way I felt that something needed to be done, but I didn't like the way that they chastised the city council person. And I said it. I called them on it because it was harsh. It was uncaring. And the manner in which it was taken care of was not good because even when you criticize someone, you need to maintain goodwill. And these people publicly humiliated someone and publicly took her to task and she needed to be taken to task somewhat, but not in the manner that she was taken. So my complaint was not that she was taken to task, but the manner in which she was taken to task. Because no love, no respect, no caring was shown, irregardless of what she did. And yes, there are some problems with insensitivity, but we could have dealt with that in a much different way. We could have helped her to understand that your behavior is not acceptable without humiliation. Now, I know humiliation. As an African American person living in the South, my first years, I went to all black schools. I used books that pages were torn out of. Never in my wildest dream did I even think I would sit in a room full of white people. That was unheard of. We had to stay on our side of town. They had to stay on their side of town. But you know what? God is good. We didn't know we were suffering. It was a way of life. And so we didn't develop huge negative attitudes about it. And we learned to manage our lives with those kind of things. And that has stood me in good stead because my mother always said, it might take you longer to get there, but you're going to get there because God is a good God. And that was what she preached to us all the time. I remember when my sister was getting ready to graduate from high school at Davis. It was Yakima High School then. And the counselors were counseling her about what she wanted to do in the future. And she said she wanted to be a school teacher. And this is right here in Yakima in 1953. And the counselor said, oh, no, my dear, you can't be a school teacher. Negroes don't teach school. Well, we knew that in Arkansas, we never saw a white teacher. In 5 days, we crossed the United States and came to Yakima, and we never saw another black teacher the whole time we were in school. But because of that early thing in the South, we knew we had accomplished, we could be a teacher. No matter what she said, we knew we could teach. And so my mother, who was, she was a disciplinarian. She didn't spare the rod. She gave my sister a whipping. And then she whipped me because I was coming right on up behind her. And she said, don't ever come to me again and tell me what you can't be. And that was probably the best message she gave us. She gave us a lot of them. But sometimes it takes something extra to make you believe. And Mother made... Mother made us believe right that day. And she took us to school. She went to school with us the next day. And she told the counselor, don't ever tell my children. They can be whatever they can be, with your help or without your help. And she sat there all day long in that school that day. And we didn't want her to come back. So we believed. It took me until I was 40 years old to get my degree. Piece by piece by piece, because we weren't eligible for the scholarships or anything else. But God enabled us to get there. And God gave us the faith to believe that we would get there. And so I have a responsibility after all of that to use those talents and to use those degrees and to use those things to make life better for others, because that's why he gave them to us. And I just so appreciate being here. I could talk on and on, because between God and my mother, I believe I have a message. And I just want to leave with you that as I sat there and worshiped with you, I thought of people I'm going to say, go to Dad's house. You know, and one of them is in another church, but just based on what I saw here this morning, just based on what I felt, just based on your praise and worship, she needs to be here. We're not giving her what she needs. And God brought me here to see it. And I have people I'm going to say, go to Dad's house. That's where you belong. Because this was empowering this morning. Sometimes we take for granted what we have. I hope you all won't do that. You won't take for granted. And in not taking for granted, don't forget to put your offering in. Because churches don't thrive on their own. They don't thrive on their own. I want to leave this message, because we always think they're always begging for money. Well, yes. Yes, we are, because we need to do God's work. So honor yourselves for what you have here. Recognize what you have. Recognize what you're giving to this community. And then if you're not involved, become involved. Watch what's happening around you. Speak up when you need to speak up. Be quiet when you need to be quiet. Some of us don't know when it's time to be quiet and listen. But that is just as important as speaking up. There is a time to lead and there's a time to follow. And we need to do that in Yakima. Help us, if you will, to cure some of the ills that you see. Help us to be civil to each other. Help us to make our young people understand that they have value. And we don't want to lose those lives. But we have to include them when we try to find solutions for what the problems are. And we need all of your help. Thank you so much for having me this morning.